Hello everyone, welcome to online classes by Konnur English Medium School, Yalati. I am your English teacher, Prasad Kulkarni, and today we will have a look at your English syllabus. For SSLC, the current syllabus was introduced in the academic year 2014 and 15 and has been carried on since then. However, recently the syllabus has been split into two separate textbooks. We call them Part 1 and Part B. In Part 1, we have 5 prose units, 5 poetry units, and 2 non-detailed units. And in Part B, we have 5 prose units, 5 poetry units, and 1 non-detailed unit. So let's go ahead and have a look at the syllabus, both Part 1 and Part B. Part 1, these are your 5 prose units. A Wrong Man in Workers' Paradise, which is a short story written by Rabindranath Tagore. Elixir of Life, an essay written by C.V. Raman. Elixir of Life is about the importance of water and how very important it is to conserve water. So C.V. Raman obviously foresaw the problems that we are facing in relation to water today, and he wrote this essay a long time ago. But what he wrote then is relevant even today. Then we have The Gift of the Magi, which is a short story written by O. Henry. Now, O. Henry is not his actual name. The writer is actually known as William Sidney Porter. O. Henry is his pen name. Then we have Louis Pasteur, Conqueror of Disease. This is a short biography of Louis Pasteur, the scientist. It's written by E.H. Carter. We have What is Moral Action, an essay on human behavior written by M.K. Gandhi. So these are 5 prose units for Part 1 textbooks. What are your 5 poems for Part 1? Let's have a look. The first poem is To a Pair of Sour Screens, written by Manmohan Singh, and the second one is Abraham Lincoln's Letter. Even though it's called Abraham Lincoln's Letter, it's been presented in the form of a poem, so we will see it in the poetry section. And yes, it is written by the 16th President of the United States of America, Mr. Abraham Lincoln himself. We then have The Temple and the Body, which is actually a translation, an English translation of a very popular Kannada vachana called Ullavaru Shivalaya Maduvaru, written by Basavanna. Now this has been translated into English by A.K. Ramanujan, so we have the English version. Then Lakinva, written by Walter Scott, is a ballad about a knight, a brave knight from Scotland called Lakinva. Then we have a very philosophical poem about anger issues written by William Blake. This poem is called Poison Tree, a Poison Tree. Now let's look at Part 2 and the prose units. So what are the Part 2 prose units? Continuing from 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10, these are your 5 prose units for Part 2 textbook. The Eyes Are Not Here, a short story by Ruskin Bond. The Girl Who Was Anne Frank, a short biography written by Louise D. Jong about Anne Frank, a girl who suffered greatly at the hands of Nazis during the Holocaust, during the Second World War. So it's an amazing story about her life. This is real life story of that person. Then we have a very interesting story about a village cricket match. This is actually an excerpt or an extract taken from a bigger context, actually a novel written by A.J. MacDonald. The novel's name is England, Their England. So it's a chapter from that novel basically. Then what do we have next? We have Consumerist Culture, written by Sharon Alexander. It's an essay about how today we have become buying machines. How we are making money only to end up buying things that we don't need at all. So it's about that trend. It's an eye-opening essay, you can say. Then we have a beautiful stage play written by Hugh Chesterton. This is called The Pie and the Tart. So these are the next 5 prose units put into your part 2 of the textbook. What are the poems in the part 2 textbook? Let's have a look. The first one is in the part 2. The first one is a sonnet written by Shakespeare. It's called Sonnet 73 by William Shakespeare. Then we have The Stolen Boat, another poem by William Wordsworth. We have Mending Wall by Robert Frost. We have Batu, this is the story of Ekalavya by Toru Dutt, and a poem dedicated to the mother of John Masefield, written by John Masefield himself, and titled CLM. So these are 5 poetry units in part 2 of your textbook. Now, talking about the non-detailed part, overall in your syllabus, overall there are 3 non-detailed units. For first term, in the first part of the book, you have 2. That is Treasure Island and Konnur. Treasure Island written by R. L. Stevenson and Konnur written by C. Rajagopalachari. Now C. Rajagopalachari wrote down entire Mahabharata in English, and this is a chapter taken from that book. So we have these 2 for part 1 in your textbook, and in part 2 textbook you have Ulysses and the Cyclops, an adventure story. So this makes up your entire syllabus. Of course, there is grammar, a lot of grammar revisited topics, exercises given in both part A and part 1 and part B. So you have, you'll be revisiting the grammar that you studied in your previous grades, and there are lots of vocabulary related exercises as well. You have figures of speech, you also have a report writing, listening, comprehension activities, etc. So we'll be doing all that as we proceed with the syllabus. Okay, so what are we going to do now? We are actually going to go back to part 1 of your textbook, the prose units. Here it is. And we will discuss the first unit, the first chapter, we can say. That is A Wrong Man in Workers' Paradise, written by Rabindranath Tagore. A Wrong Man in Workers' Paradise. So what is this story about? The title says A Wrong Man in Workers' Paradise. Okay, we will come to that. Let's first understand something. Useful work. What is useful work? What is the definition of useful work? How do you explain useful work? Well, useful work can mean different things to different people. Because what I consider useful work might not be the same to you. Now you ask a business person, what is useful work to you? Then he will tell you, it's conducting his business. So going to his shop or store, opening it, getting everything ready, and dealing with his everyday business, selling things. So that's useful work according to a business person. Now what is useful work according to a carpenter? Well, for a carpenter, useful work is to making or repairing wooden objects, isn't it? That's what he would say useful work means to him. Well, ask an athlete. For an athlete, he will not consider making wooden things or repairing wooden things useful work. He will consider staying fit, exercising, a useful work. So useful work can mean different things to different people. For example, you are students. What is useful work to you? Well, definitely studying, preparing for examinations. Yes, learning, that's what useful work to you. What is useful work for a teacher? Teaching, preparing for classes, yes. So we have different definitions of useful work depending upon where we stand and look at. Now, when we are talking about useful work, what about an artist? What about an artist? What is useful work for an artist? What does an artist do? He draws pictures, he makes paintings, yes? He does sculpting, he does some artwork, he's a creative person. So he will say, yeah, that's useful work to me. He will definitely vouch for that. But do you think everybody will acknowledge that? Do you think everyone will consider it useful? No, definitely not, of course not. Because for them, that looks pretty much like a useless work. Painting, drawing pictures, creating models out of clay, for example. He's going to consider that, most of the people are going to consider that pretty useless. Because that work has no utility, yes? So when something is useless, we will say it has no utility. But for an artist, that can have a lot of utility. He might consider it very useful. So a wrong man in Workers' Paradise is a story. It's a story about an artist whom many people, thought of as somebody, an idler, an idler. An idler is somebody who avoids useful work in the eyes of others, okay, not in his own eyes or not in the eyes of other artists. An artist looks like an idler to other people because they think that he avoids useful work and spends time in a lazy way. So this is a story about such a man, an artist. Well, when an artist dies, yes, we're talking about an artist in the story. When he dies, not many people would think that he would go to heaven, because heaven is for people who have done something useful, right? Some hard work. To others, he did no such things. So he doesn't deserve to go to heaven, according to them. But sometimes good things happen to people even if they don't deserve them. So let's say, in the eyes of those others, he didn't deserve to go to heaven, but he went to heaven. Let's call, he is lucky. So he is lucky, he goes to heaven. And then he is taken to a paradise. Yeah? Paradise is just, you can say, a separate segment in heaven. There are different paradises in heaven. So a paradise for people who just love work, a paradise for people who love playing, a paradise for people who love singing. Maybe there are different paradises for different communities, different groups of people. So he is taken to a paradise, which is nothing but heaven. So he didn't deserve to go there, but he goes. He's taken to the paradise. But he's taken to a wrong paradise. He is taken to workers' paradise. And that's how the story begins. So what happens to this man when he goes to the paradise? What does he do there? And how do people treat him there? Is the story of a wrong man in Workers' Paradise, written by Rabindranath Tagore. So let's read A Wrong Man in Workers' Paradise. What I have done is I have copy-pasted the entire prose unit for you, because I am aware that many of you do not have textbook copies with you yet, because we haven't given them to you. So some of you might have them from your friends who are seniors to you, but still you can follow those if you have them with you, or you can simply refer to what you see here. Now I'm going to read through this short story, and I will explain it here and there, giving you meanings, giving you explanations of phrases, etc. The man had never believed in mere utility. So we are talking about a man here. A man, yes, an idler, an artist, yes. He never believed in mere utility. For him, work did not mean that it has to be always useful, especially from the point of view of others. He did not think so. So whatever he did appeared to have no utility. I mean, he didn't care actually, he didn't believe in that. So having had no useful work, he indulged in mad whims because he didn't have any useful work. Okay, now see, when we say he didn't have any useful work to do, when we say he engaged himself in useless activity or useless work, we are talking from the point of view of others, not from his point of view. Okay, so from the other's point of view, he did not have any useful work. So whatever he did, it looked like, he was always getting into mad whims, something that did not make sense to others, obviously. So what did he do? He made little pieces of sculpture. I hope you are all following me. Yes, I am going through this paragraph now. So he made little pieces of sculpture. So you know what sculpture is, yeah? Making shapes out of some material. It could be clay, it could be wood, it could be stone, or well, it could be even paper, or it could be even plastic. So making some structure out of some material. So he made sculpture. What did he do? He created men, women, castles, and quaint other things. He made some pots as well, and these he dotted with seashells. So he put some ornamentation on them, and then he painted. So when he wasn't doing sculpting, he was painting, and even he would paint the things he sculpted. So thus he wasted his time on all that was useless, needless. Well, from our point of view, let's say we are not artists, so it would look like this man, what is he doing? He's wasting his time. None of that is going to earn him a livelihood. It's not going to earn him a stable income. But although it looks maybe interesting to him, maybe he loves his work, but then that looks very useless to us. So let's say that he wasted his time, everything, whatever he did, that was useless. So when people noticed the things that he did, they usually laughed at him. At times he vowed to rebuke, he vowed to shake off his whims, but they lingered in his mind. So sometimes he would get tired of people laughing at him, because he didn't understand why they did that. So maybe they thought he was just wasting his time. He understood that, yes, he realized that sometimes, and he would say, okay, I need to stop this. I need to stop wasting time. He wanted to shake off his what? Those whims that people call mad whims, and then stop doing such things. Maybe, become normal like other people and then do what other people did as well. He tried to change himself, but he could not. He could not do that. So he remained what he was, an artist. Well, some boys seldom ply their books and yet pass their tests. Some boys, Rabindranath Tagore says, seldom ply their books. What does seldom ply their books mean? Some boys, they do not study much, yes, they do not read their books much, they do not put much effort into studying, and yet they pass their tests. Still they come out victorious after the examinations. Yeah, they pass, even though they didn't spend much time studying the whole year. Similarly, says Rabindranath Tagore, a similar thing happened to this man. Which man? Our artist, yes. He spent his earth life in useless work, and yet, after his death, the gates of heaven opened wide for him. So, he did everything that was useless. So, from others' point of view, he should not go to heaven, but he did. Somehow, he was taken to the heaven. The heaven's gates opened wide for him. Just like how some boys don't study and still pass. So yes, sometimes we get lucky. This is what happened to our artist. But the moving finger writes even in heaven. Moving finger. So what is moving finger? The moving finger here refers to our fate. Yes, karma, you can say, karma, fate. So when we have bad karma, it follows us wherever you go. Even after the death, says Rabindranath Tagore. Even if you go to heaven, this man didn't deserve to go to heaven. Yes, he went to heaven. Something wrong happened there. He went to heaven, but his fate made sure that he paid back his karma. So even though he was taken to the heaven, he was taken to a place in the heaven where he could not enjoy what heaven really is. So it so happened, it came to pass means it so happened that the aerial messenger who took charge of the man made a mistake and found a place for him in workers' paradise. So it's believed that aerial messengers come and then they take us and they decide where we need to be put, because according to whatever we have done in our life, they have records, right? The good deeds, the bad deeds, they balance them out and then they see which side is heavier. If the good deeds are a lot more than the bad deeds, then maybe they will take us to heaven. If our bad deeds are outnumbering the good deeds, then we know where we will go. We will go to hell. So aerial messengers, they do that. Yes, once a man dies, they take him. Yes, they are sent by gods, of course. So they are in charge of taking us to hell or heaven. So the aerial messenger comes down because this man is dead. The idol artist is dead. Now aerial messenger, well, because heavens opened their gates for this man, he has to take this man to heaven. But as the fate followed the man, as his karma followed the man was placed in the wrong place in the heaven, which was actually a segment of the heaven, a paradise for people who loved only work. So it's called a worker's paradise. So our idol artist goes to heaven, but it's no good to him because he is not a worker like other people. He is an artist. So if he goes to a heaven meant for working people, people who love work, now he is not going to enjoy his stay there in that heaven. So this is because of the moving finger. This is because of the fate. So we will continue this story. In this paradise, you find everything except leisure. What is leisure? Leisure is free time, yes? Free time. Like we are all enjoying a lot of it these days because of the lockdown. So we have a lot of free time, yes? But in workers' paradise, you won't find it. Because workers' paradise is meant for people who wish to work all the time. Even if you ask them to take a break, they are not going to do that. They are workaholics. You know who's a workaholic? A person who is addicted to work. He is not going to sit and rest up and waste the time. No. So this place is meant for people. While they lived on earth, they just did all useful work in their definition from their point of view. So they never wasted time. They only spent their time by doing useful activity. So when they die, if you take them and put them in heaven and then say, okay, here you enjoy, relax, you don't have to do anything, you think they are going to enjoy? No, they will not, because even there they will carry on their mentality of working. So they have to be placed in a proper paradise. So good thing there is a paradise for them. It's called workers' paradise, and there is no free time. Everybody just works and works 24 hours a day. Here men say, God, we haven't a moment to spare. And women whisper, let's move on, time is a-flying. All exclaim, time is precious. We have our hands full. We make use of every single minute. They sigh complainingly. And yet those words make them happy and exalted. See how beautifully Rabindranath Tagore captures that mentality of a workaholic. So they just want to work, and when their hands are full of work, even though they say, oh God, we don't have time, they're not complaining. Even though they sound like they're complaining, but they are very happy that they have so much work to do. They don't want to waste a moment. Women, men, everybody who is in this paradise, in workers' paradise, all they want to do is work and work and work. So they hurry about, they don't walk slowly, because walking slowly means wasting time. So they keep hurrying, and then they keep running around doing the work that they do. But this newcomer, now don't forget, our idol artist is here now in workers' paradise, and he's a newcomer there. He died recently, and he is then brought to workers' paradise, wrongly of course. Now, he had passed all his life on earth without doing a scrap of useful work, did not fit in with the scheme of things in workers' paradise. Now, this man who did no useful work while he lived on earth, spent his time doing painting and drawing pictures. Now, he could not fit into the scheme of things in workers' paradise. What do we mean when we say the scheme of things? The scheme of things is the way things were in workers' paradise. And how were the things in workers' paradise? Did people sit in some place and then chat and then relax, listen to music? No, they didn't. All they did was they worked and worked and worked. So this man found it very strange, even uncomfortable, staying there in workers' paradise. He lounged in the streets absently and jostled the hurrying men. He lay down in the green meadows or close to the fast-flowing streams and was taken to task by busy farmers. He was always in the way of others. So what did he do? Nobody talked to him, and even if he talked to others, they didn't respond because it was a waste of time. So he sat here and there, and then he moved around without an aim, without a purpose. And then many a time he was taken to task by people who were busy because he was getting in the way of others. He was getting in the way of people who were hurrying about busily doing their work. So he lounged in the streets absently. Absently in the sense, he just moved around in the streets. He didn't have a place to go, and he didn't have anything to do there, while everybody else had some work to do. So while he was lounging there, moving around absently, without purpose, he was getting in the way of others, and they didn't like that. So they shouted at him. He got shouted at by them. A bustling girl went every day to a silent torrent. What is a torrent? It's a stream. Yes, a stream of water. Streams are small water bodies which go and join a river, right? So there was a stream, and what kind of stream was that? That was a silent torrent. That was a silent stream. Why is it silent? Because even streams, even torrents do not make noise, because doing that, unnecessarily making sound, unnecessarily making noise, is wasting of energy. So even the torrents did have that sense of conserving energy for doing something useful. And the torrent's job is to flow. It doesn't have to make noise for that, right? So it was a silent torrent. And to that torrent, a girl. And what kind of girl? A bustling girl. And she's also busy. Bustling is always hurrying. She went to that torrent to draw water. So she went to that torrent to draw water every day to fill her pitchers. Pitchers are small pots which are used to fill water. So she carried pitchers and then went to the torrent every day. The girl's movement on the road was like the rapid movement of a skilled hand on the strings of a guitar. So Rabindranath Tagore gives a comparison here between the girl's movement on the road to a guitarist's skilled hands on the strings. So the way the guitarist plays the guitar, how his fingers move on the strings of the guitar, yes, that's how her movement was. So she was a very skilled worker. She didn't waste time. She hurried to draw water from the torrent, and she came back. She didn't stand anywhere. She didn't talk to anybody. She didn't sit anywhere. She didn't waste her time. Her hair was carelessly done. Inquisitive wisps peeped often over her forehead to peer at the dark wonder of her eye. Her hair was carelessly done. Why is Rabindranath Tagore drawing our attention to her hair here? Because he wants us to understand this, that she was not interested in keeping her hair combed neatly. Why? Because that didn't make any sense to her. Combing hair, sitting there, spending time doing it, is wasting time. So her hair remained carelessly done. But she had beautiful eyes. He says, dark, wonderful eyes. So locks of her hair sometimes came over her face because her hair was everywhere. Yes, it was not done well. So some of the wisps, some of the locks, they just came over her cheek. And then, as if to look at the beautiful, wonderful dark eyes of that girl. The idler was standing by the stream, as a princess sees a lonely beggar and is filled with pity. So the busy girl of heaven saw this one and was filled with pity. Well, this girl happens to see our artist, our idler artist. He was standing by that exact torrent where she went every day to draw water. And she sees this man, and there is nobody like that in workers' paradise, standing somewhere doing nothing. And he is doing that. He is just standing by the torrent, and he seems to have no work. And in workers' paradise, if you don't have work, it's like being a beggar. Beggars don't have enough to fend for themselves. If you are in workers' paradise, you don't have work, then you look like beggars. You don't have anything to do. So she feels very sorry for him. It's like a princess seeing a beggar in real life, on earth. So if a princess on earth, when she is passing in a beautiful chariot drawn by beautiful horses, accompanied by so many of her maidens, and if she happens to see a beggar, yes, looking miserable by the side of the road, how would she feel? Would she feel sorry for him? Yes, very sorry for him. She would have that pity, very intense sympathy for him. So that's how this girl who went to draw water from the torrent felt about this man. He looked like a beggar to her, and she felt very sorry for him. So she talks to him. She says, "Aha, you have no work in hand, have you?" She says, "Oh, you don't have any work to do?" The man sighed. He said, "Work? I have not a moment to spare for work." He says, "Work? I don't have a moment to spend for work," because he knew what the girl meant by work. She talked about the useful work. Useful work. He knew this kind of talk when he lived on earth. People talked to him like this all the time because they thought he was doing nothing useful. So they always jeered at him, they laughed at him, they did that. So he understands what this word means, the word work means. So he knows that this girl is talking about that kind of work that many people call useful. Yes. So he says, "No, for that kind of work I don't have a moment to spend." But the girl did not understand his words, and she said, "I shall spare some work for you if you like." So the girl did not exactly understand what he was referring to, because she wouldn't know what his understanding of useful work was. So she did not understand his words, and she simply said, "Well, if you don't have work, I can give some work to you." The man replied, "Girl of the silent torrent." Okay, this is how he addresses her, and this is how we will be addressing her too as well. So, girl of the silent torrent. He doesn't know her name. He calls her girl of the silent torrent. "All this time I have been waiting to take some work from your hands." He says that because he sees her there every day, and he has seen her many times already. So it is now that she is talking to him, and he is talking to her. So when she says, "I want to give you some work," he says, "Well, I'm actually waiting to take some work from your hands." It's like, I've been waiting for this moment. I really need some work from your hands. So she's okay with that. He's using the word work. So she says, "What kind of work would you like? Will you give me one of your pictures, one that you can spare?" Well, he sees that she's carrying a couple of pitchers. Yes, not pictures. Pitchers. Pitchers are pots to fill water. He sees that she has a couple of pitchers with her. He says, "Can you give me one of those pitchers? The one that you really do not need. The one that you can spare." Yes. She asked, "A pitcher? You want to draw water from the torrent?" And she thinks that this man probably wants to draw water from the torrent, which is okay. That's a very useful work in workers' paradise. So okay, so you want a pitcher because you want to draw water from the torrent? And he says, no, I shall draw pictures on your picture. That's his reply. He says, no, I don't want your picture because I want to draw water. Actually, I want to draw pictures on your picture. So you need to pay attention to how these words are pronounced. P-I-C-T-U-R-E is pronounced as picture, while P-I-T-C-H-E-R is pronounced as picture. So he says, I want to draw pictures on your picture. The girl was annoyed. She didn't expect this answer, and she got irritated. She was annoyed. Pictures indeed. I have no time to waste on such as you. I'm going. And she walked away. She felt annoyed. She felt angry because she wasted time talking to this man. She wanted to help him. She wanted to help him with some work, and he says, give me one of your pictures so that I can, draw pictures on it. So she feels very annoyed, and she says, well, I don't have time to waste with people like you, so I'm leaving. And she left. But how could a busy person get the better of one who had nothing to do? Every day they met, and every day he said to her, girl of the silent torrent, give me one of your clay pictures. I shall draw pictures on it. But how could somebody who is always busy, the girl was always busy, and her job was to draw pictures from the water all the time. So she would draw pictures, draw water from in pictures, and then she would take them home, empty them, come back to the torrent several times during the day. But this man did not have any work to do. He did not have any commitments to meet, commitments to fulfill. So he always sat there or stood there by the torrent and waited for her. And every time they met, every time he saw her, even though she didn't talk to him after that, he always talked to her. He always asked her for one of her clay pictures, saying he wanted to draw pictures on them. And she couldn't avoid meeting him. And she yielded at last. She yielded at last. She yielded at last means finally she had to accept his offer for drawing pictures on her pictures. So she gave him one of her pictures because she was tired of having to see him there every day and he coming to her and then asking for one of her pictures. So she decided, maybe let's try this, let's give it to him, or whatever, let's see what he wants to do. The man started painting. He drew line after line, he put color after color. Now this man was an artist. He carried brushes and paints and pencils with him all the time. As soon as the girl hands over one of her pictures to this man, he starts painting immediately. He first draws lines. He draws line after line, and then he colors them, and then a picture is ready. A picture on her picture is ready. When he completed his work, the girl held up the picture and stared at its sides, her eyes puzzled. So the picture was ready, it was filled with color, it looked beautiful, and then he handed that to the girl. He handed the picture back to her. That's all he wanted to do. He wanted to draw a picture on it and then give it back to her. He didn't want the part for himself. When she received that picture, she looked at it. And what did she see? She saw something that confused her. Picture, no? She was not accustomed to seeing pictures. Those were not things common in workers' paradise. Nobody drew pictures there because that was considered a useless activity. So her brows drawn, she asked, what do they mean, all those lines and colors? What is their purpose? And this is what she says to the artist. When she observes that picture, she sees the lines, those patterns and the colors. She wants to know. She asks him, what are these lines? And what do they mean? And what are these colors? What is their purpose? And that was a question that made the idol artist laugh. So he laughed. He says, nothing, a picture may have no meaning and serve no purpose. Because both you and I understand this. We know that pictures do not have to have some meaning. Pictures are pictures. They are a form of art. Well, they do express something, but they do not have to have a meaning as such, and they do not have to have a purpose as such. But this girl wants to know the meaning and purpose of those lines and colors. So that's what made him laugh. He laughs and then he says, well, it's a picture, and a picture may have no meaning and it may serve no purpose. The girl went away with her picture. At home, away from prying eyes, she held it in the light, turned it round and round, and scanned the painting from all angles. So when she received this picture back, she just went home, and then she opened, she held that picture in her hand in the light, and then she knew that there were elders in her family, and then they were watching her. Prying eyes here refers to people who were watching her. And why were they watching? Because they just wanted to make sure that she didn't waste her time. And she had to be careful. She wanted to observe this picture because she didn't understand it, although it sounded a little intriguing, a little attractive in some way. So she wanted to observe what it was. So she went home, held it under the light, and then scanned it. She tried to understand it. For the first time in her life, she had seen something that had no meaning and no purpose at all. Why she was puzzled, why she was confused, at the same time attracted, is because this was the first time in her life in worker's paradise that she had seen something like this. Something that looked interesting in some way, but it had no meaning and no purpose at all. When she set out for the torrent the next day, her hurrying feet were a little less hurried than before, for a new sense seemed to have awakened in her, a sense that seemed to have no meaning and no purpose at all. Well, the next day, this girl was not the same. She used to hurry about, right? She used to run like the hands of a skilled guitarist on the strings of the guitar. Now she's not doing that. Her feet are not hurrying, not as much as they did before. She has slowed down a little bit. And why has she slowed a little bit? Because a new sense seemed to have awakened in her, a sense that seemed to have no meaning and no purpose at all. After seeing that picture, yes, she might have thought about it the whole night. So that she still had in her mind. She wanted to understand what it was. And although she was not able to understand it, it just kept her captivated. She was somehow felt engrossed in it. She saw the painter standing by the torrent and asked in confusion, "What do you want of me?" Now she knows that something has stirred in her, some change has come about her. And then when she goes to the torrent to draw the water the next day, she sees the painter standing right there, waiting for her. So she is now a little frustrated. She knows something has affected her from that picture. And now she wants to know what else he has planned for her. So she says, "What do you want of me? What do you want of me? You asked for a picture, I gave it to you. Now what do you want?" "Only some more work from your hands." He says, "Well, I want some more work from your hands." "What kind of work would you like?" she says. "Let me make a color ribbon for your hair," he answered. He says, "Well, I want to make a color ribbon for your hair." And she says, "What for?" Her question was obviously, it was inspired by the kind of life she was leading. She didn't understand what a ribbon would be useful for. Yeah, tying the hair, yes, but that is not something women did in workers' paradise. They didn't care about their hair much because they considered it a waste of time. So she says, "What for? What is this ribbon is going to be for?" He says, "Nothing." Nothing means, well, it's just a ribbon. It doesn't have to have a purpose. Ribbons were made bright with colors. The busy girl of workers' paradise had now to spend a lot of time every day tying the colored ribbon around her hair. The minutes slipped by unutilized. Much work was left unfinished. Now he made colorful ribbons for her, and then he gave them to her. He said, "These ribbons are there for your hair. You can tie your hair with these ribbons." And because the ribbons were beautiful, the girl actually ventured to tie them around her hair. So that means she started spending extra time in doing her hair. She had to sit down, comb her hair, and then use the ribbons to tie her hair. So many minutes were wasted in this work. Many minutes were wasted in this useless work, and a lot of work remained unfinished. So now this girl has been transformed a little bit. From a very busy, bustling, hurrying girl, she has become somebody who spends time doing work that she didn't do before, doing work that has no utility, no meaning, no purpose at all. In workers' paradise, work had of late began to suffer. Many persons who had been active before were now idle, wasting their precious time on useless things such as painting and sculpture. Now Rabindranath Tagore says, she was not the only person affected by the idler artist. There were other people whom the idler artist had met, and then they had been affected by his art. I mean, affected in the sense they had never seen art like that before. They did not understand it before. They did not pay attention to it before, and they did not value it before in any way. But now they have it. He is making ribbons for them, he's drawing pictures, and who knows, maybe he made sculptures for other people, and now they were all busy looking at them or in such activity. Now the elder people, the elders of the workers' paradise, people who always observed and supervised the work in workers' paradise, they noticed this. They noticed that some people were wasting time in things like this. Things that were totally useless, the work that was totally useless. So they were worried, they were anxious. They called a meeting. They became anxious, they became worried, they called a meeting. And everybody on the elders panel, yes, they agreed. Yes, it's like a panchayat we have in villages. So a panchayat meeting was called, and they all agreed that such a state of affairs had so far been unknown in the history of the workers' paradise. They all unanimously agreed that yes, this is happening for the first time in workers' paradise. This has never happened before. People have never become lazy like this before. So it was then that the aerial messenger came running in. Aerial messenger, we are talking about that aerial messenger who brought this man into this paradise, wrongly into this paradise. So he knew that the meeting had been called. Now he knew that this had become a serious thing in workers' paradise. So he had to do something. He came running in, he hurried in, he bowed before the elders, he said, he apologized, and he said, I made a mistake. He made a confession. Making a confession means saying that I made a mistake. He said, I brought a wrong man into this paradise. It is all because of him. I will tell you the truth, because I brought this man, I brought a wrong man into this workers' paradise. He's an artist. He doesn't do useful work. He shouldn't have been brought here, but I made a mistake and I brought him here. And it's because of him that work has been affected, that people are behaving like this. The man was summoned. The elders said, well, let's see that man, call him right away. And he was summoned, he was called. As he came, the elders saw his fantastic dress, his quaint brushes, his paints, and they knew at once that he was not the right sort for workers' paradise. As soon as they saw him, they didn't need any explanation. They knew that this must be the man, because he looked weird in their eyes. He was carrying paint brushes, he was carrying paints, he looked very strange to them, and he knew that this was not the right type of person to be brought to the workers' paradise. So they said, stiffly, seriously, in a stern way, they said, this is no place for the like of you. You must leave. They say, well, Mr. Artist, you are not the right type of person for this workers' paradise. You are spoiling our culture here. You are spoiling our work culture here. So you must leave. That's the decision we have taken in this meeting. And do you think the man was upset because they asked him to leave the workers' paradise? No. He sighed in relief. He felt very relieved because he was not happy there. He was not enjoying the paradise. Oh, you go to paradise so that you can enjoy it, but then even after death, even after being brought to a paradise, he is not able to enjoy heaven. So he was very happy that they asked him to leave that particular paradise. So he gathered up his brushes, he gathered up his paints, but he was about to leave. As he was about to go, the girl of the silent torrent came up tripping and cried, "Wait a moment, I shall come with you." But suddenly something unexpected happened. When he was packing up his brushes and paints and he was happily willing to leave, he was getting ready to leave, and as he started moving, he heard the girl shouting from behind. The girl came running, tripping, missing her balance and almost falling. And then she said, "Wait, don't go, I will come with you." So this girl was ready to leave that paradise and go with this idol artist. And the elders gasped in surprise. This was something even weirder for these elders. They had never seen something like this. Never they had a thing like this happen in workers' paradise before. A thing that had no meaning and no purpose at all. So something happened in the paradise. They called a meeting, and now something else is happening. This girl is not only has not only been affected by this idol artist, but she has been completely transformed. She has been so transformed that now she thinks there is more to life than just your useful work. So she wants to maybe go out and explore all other things in life. So she decides to leave workers' paradise and go with the idol artist, and elders just sit there and then watch both of them leave. So this is the story of a wrong man in workers' paradise, written by Rabindranath Tagore. Now we will look at some questions in the next session, and we will try to understand, there are certain elements in the story that you will have to write descriptive answers for, and then we will look into that. So that's it for today. If you have any questions, if you need any assistance, you can always reach me on my phone, and my phone number is 966-385-4343. Many of you already have that phone number, and I will see you next time.